In this video, we are going to review Donald Trump's complete economic plan as he just broke down in an interview with Bloomberg. It was extremely thorough. We hear about Taiwan. We hear about the Federal Reserve. We hear about interest rate cuts. We hear a lot about corporate taxation. And we can combine some of this with what we know and have heard from JD Vance to get a pretty clear picture. So let's get started. First, there are a lot of Wall Street firms that believe that Donald Trump is actually going to A, win, but B, lead inflation to likely increase. That's because they believe that the former president, Donald Trump, is going to be more likely to run higher debts, cut taxes, and basically stimulate spending, which they believe could lead to inflation. This makes sense coming out of COVID, but I actually think they're going to be wrong. Everybody can have their opinion on this, but it's been a pretty clear trade that people believe Donald Trump could actually drive inflation up. I actually don't think that's going to happen, mostly because I look at what interest rates were when Donald Trump was in office and after the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. 2017 Jobs Act saw a lot of stimulative growth, a reduction in taxation. We actually saw inflation trending around pretty dang low levels. What I always like to use is I like to use the New York Fed multivariate core trend inflation. Now, that's a really big word, and don't worry so much about that. It just shows you the trend of inflation, of core inflation. And what you find here is the Tax Cut and Jobs Act was passed over here when multivariate core sat about 2.8. And multivariate core, since that moment, never exceeded 2.8. Instead, it actually trended down. So I don't necessarily agree with the institutions that we're going to see rising inflation because of a Trump presidency, but I want you to have my opinion, and I want you to know what Wall Street thinks, just so you can make up your own opinion. So then, Donald Trump's economics plan is really being called Trumponomics, and the idea is lower taxes and lower interest rates. Donald Trump has made it very clear that he is willing to let Jerome Powell finish out his term, which ends in the spring, May of 2025. And he says, quote, "I would let him serve it out, his term, especially if I thought he was doing the right thing." Now, this is actually a backhanded threat. Donald Trump does not want Jerome Powell to cut interest rates before the election, but markets are already pricing in that J. Powell is going to cut rates in September by 25 basis points. We have 100% certainty right now based on market pricing. That doesn't mean we'll actually have 100% pricing. That could change very quickly if we get one bad inflation report. But this is a very clear threat. And so if Jerome Powell cuts in September, as we think he will, some believe that Jay Powell is going to lose his job in January. I don't actually think he will, but the rhetoric, that pressure will be there. And Jerome Powell is just going to get pressured to cut rates even more if Trump does win the election, which at the moment seems more likely, given that right now Democrats can't even keep the story straight in terms of is Biden going to drop out or not. According to Axios, the current latest thinking is that we're actually going to see Joe Biden drop out by this Friday or Sunday at the latest. Now, I just want to be clear, we've heard that many times this month, and it just continues to be wrong because he keeps being stubborn and staying in. The White House is saying he's not wavering. Pelosi's beating him up. And Axios is reporting that according to what individuals within the government are hearing right now and within the White House, Biden is very likely to drop out this week. So I don't know. It seems like now the odds are going up. And I can show you that on screen here. President Biden may decide to drop out of the presidential race as soon as this weekend, according to several top Democrats who believe the rising pressure will finally persuade the 81-year-old. Well, we'll see, but all we know is there's a massive lack of unity amongst the Democrats right now. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. So, something else. On Trump. Trump gives a lot of credit to the 25th president who raised enough revenue through tariffs to basically enable tax reductions while at the same time growing the economy. And this is something that JD Vance talks about as well, is, hey, we don't want to tax more. We actually want to tax less, but we want markets and businesses to have more money by growing GDP. And so they reference President McKinley. However, it's important to know what the economy was actually like when McKinley was president. This was like the 1890s. We just came out of a recession in 1893, and it was kind of easy to have growth because you were coming out of a bottom, and you were in the midst of the Industrial Revolution. So of course you could issue tariffs on other countries because you were a newer country. You're just a little over 100 years old, which is pretty new in country ages. And frankly, we were coming out of a crash, and we were in the Industrial Revolution. So it makes sense why they refer to McKinley, because Donald Trump and JD Vance are able to go, look, McKinley was able to raise taxes and grow the economy. True, but consider the factors of then versus now. They're almost the opposite. Although some people will say that artificial intelligence today is the next industrial revolution. So if you think AI is the next industrial revolution, they could be right. They could tariff more and the economy could grow. If this is not the next industrial revolution, then we would be in the opposite conditions today than we were after McKinley. So when you hear that reference to McKinley, remember that. You just came out of a hole. Anyway, the Peterson Institute believes that Donald Trump's plan to introduce tariffs of 60 to 100% on China and a 10% across the board tariff on other countries will end up increasing the annual cost for every average American by $1,700 a year. I actually disagree with them. And this is not to try to defend Trump. It's just that I looked at their methodology by looking at their actual research report. And what they did is they took 2018 and 2019 and assumed that if the US-China trade war that we had in 2018 to 19 has a similar impact today as it did then we would see $1,700 in increasing in costs. But the problem is, back in 2018-19, I think businesses actually had more pricing power than they do today. That's because COVID substantially expanded supply chains, and by expanding supply chains makes them more capable of providing more products at lower costs. And then because there's a greater saturation of more products, you actually have disinflation, more disinflation than I think you will have had looking back to 2018-19. So I don't think you can really apply the 2018-19 numbers of the trade war to today. And so I think their methodology is flawed, and I actually don't think you're going to see a $1,700 annual increase per average American household because of Donald Trump's tariff plan. I think the economy is going to grow. I'm not sure it's going to grow McKinley style, but it might, mostly because I'm a little bit of a doubter on the AI stuff. I think it's a great chat bot. I think it's great for spell check, and I think it's great for helping you with spreadsheets. But do I really think ChatGPT is, quite frankly, artificial intelligence? Not really. I think self-driving in vehicles or like a Palantir style technology is is a form of artificial intelligence. But we're getting a little nuanced here. Let's stick to Trump. Trump overall says he's not a fan of sanctions, prefers tariffs. Sanctions are basically economic punishments, whereas tariffs are a tax on goods that you trade with. And that gives Donald Trump more power to negotiate with other leaders. And I think that's really what he's doing when he's threatening these tariffs on China. I think what he's really setting up for is, hey, when I show up, I know the power that I have. He said this. He's like, I know the power I have now because I've done this job before, and I'm going to use these strong tariffs to go to bat for our country and negotiate good deals for us. It's probably not a bad strategy. And you can kind of see this balancing in what Donald Trump is trying to do here. He's like, on one hand, we're going to have 60 to 100% tariffs on China, which would double the cost of importing stuff from China. Just like JD Vance said yesterday, their ticket believes that China is stealing Americans' middle-class jobs. Middle-class American jobs. Yeah, anyway. But then on the other side, Donald Trump is like, TikTok, we might not focus on banning it. Doesn't matter so much. So you can see where he's kind of setting up for that negotiation with China, right? It's all art of the deal. Anyway, Donald Trump, of course, sealed the southern border. I mean, this should be obvious at this point. Trump and JD Vance both say that immigration restrictions are the biggest factor in reshaping the economy. They want to cut corporate taxes to 15%. That would be down 6 percentage points from the 21% where they sit now. 15 divided by 21, though, is about a 29% reduction in corporate taxes and a 6 percentage point reduction, right? Anyway, they want to renew the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. They're looking at a Treasury Secretary, potentially Jamie Dimon. Which is really interesting because Jamie Dimon sold stock for the first time in 20 years, I think, if I remember correctly, just a few months ago. And he's starting to kind of plant the seed that he wants to transition out of his job. Very interesting. Donald Trump told Bloomberg that he would not pardon himself, that he wouldn't consider it, though Bloomberg added salt to this, and they're like, well, I mean, he's flip-flopped before. Okay, that is true. People do change their mind. Bloomberg says that he understands the level of his power now. Regarding black and Hispanic votes, as many as 20% of black men now back Trump. It literally says that. It doesn't say women. It says black men. Though some pundits think those numbers are overstated. Remember, Biden won 92% of the black vote in 2020. Trump explains black people are being, quote, decimated by the millions of people that are coming into the country. It's an anti-immigration argument. Bloomberg fact-checked this, and they say that according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the majority of labor employment gains since 2018 have been from citizens. Okay, but this is where, like, I think Bloomberg is trying to go out of the way to, like, be anti-Trump, and it's fine. Like, I'm trying to provide the balance here. Like, it's not all good, right? Again, like the McKinley thing, like, I don't know if we can really compare to that. I think that might be a little too bullish. But as far as this, no duh, the majority of employment comes from not illegal immigrants. So I think this counter fact check by Bloomberg was kind of like fugazi, because it's like, that doesn't matter. Like, what we should be looking at is how many jobs are being taken now by illegal immigrants versus 5 years ago, let's say. It's a little harder to find that statistic. I have not been able to successfully find that, but that would be the question that I would be asking, not the question that Bloomberg is stating here. A lot of institutions are now convinced that Donald Trump is going to sweep the election. That's going to be sweeping both the House and the Senate. So I actually have, I'm pretty sure I have a sweep piece here so you could see it from the institutions. Let me just search for it really quick. I just need to type in sweep. It should come right up. The red sweep coming. Yeah, here it is. I want you to see this. The red sweep coming. All right, ready for this? Let's do this really quick. Okay. Sorry, I'm really bad at like editing my videos, so I apologize. But anyway, look at this. Okay, so the assassination attempt against Trump will make it less socially awkward to support Trump. Therefore, they think it's more likely that Trump will win because you're now getting prominent business leaders like Bill Ackman and Elon Musk coming out and supporting Donald Trump. This also would include like a David Sachs or otherwise. Bolsonaro's lesson in the 2018 stabbing of the Brazilian president led us to see that assassination attempts can swing undecided votes. Same was probably true of Reagan. Not so much Teddy Roosevelt, though. A lot of Democrats are like, well, Teddy Roosevelt lost after an assassination attempt. Yeah, but he was also running third party for a third term before we had term limits. Then Hollywood stars are rapidly dropping off the bandwagon for supporting Biden, and there could be a sizable red wave. This, by the way, is Gavical Research. They're Hong Kong based. Okay. Trump speaks highly of the CEO of LVMH, Bernard Arnault. Now, he's an interesting character. You know, he actually started as a real estate guy, and when he was like 35 or 36, got into doing luxury goods. So I guess I still have hope of doing a different line of work if I ever decide I need to. But then again, who could challenge my style? Jamie Dimon says Trump was right about NATO. He's kind of right about immigration. Trump says that he loves Scotland and Germany. Trump says trade deficits are a critical measure of economic fairness. Trump says he's lukewarm about the idea of standing up to Chinese aggression. Again, this is that balance we're getting. We're going to double the taxes on them, on China. And then on the flip side, it's like, maybe we won't ban TikTok. It's art of the deal, It's negotiating. Taiwan took our chip business from us, he says. I mean, how stupid are we? They took all of our chip business. This is true when it comes to chip manufacturing. Taiwan Semi pretty much takes over everything. But they are taking advantage of Biden bucks, and they're building a plant in Phoenix, Arizona by Purola, Arizona? I can't pronounce that city. But anyway, it's like the western side of Phoenix, Arizona. West, northwest. I've been to the plant. Anyway, Trump wants Taiwan to pay for protection money. This is all negotiating. I don't actually see that happening, but this posturing will lead to negotiated outcomes. Let's see here. Trump with Apple. There's a story about how Apple's Tim Cook worked very closely with Donald Trump in the trade war of 2019. And Mr. Cook actually met Trump in person to convince him not to increase these tariffs on companies like Apple and manufacturing in China so much via Foxconn. And Trump actually respected Mr. Cook for coming to meet Trump in person. And after they came out with a deal that worked for all sides, Tim Cook, really smart here, Tim Cook ended up gifting Donald Trump a $6,000 Mac Pro. Smart. See, I like this. This is what I want to see in a leader. And again, it doesn't have to be Trump. Like, it could be another leader as well. I just don't think Biden is capable of doing that stuff. That's why I'm so anti-Biden. You know, people are like, Kevin, you're turning like MAGA red waiver. And I'm like, I really am just trying to be as neutral as possible. And I think the most neutral thing I could say right now is the Trump-Vance ticket is really powerful and Biden's got to go. Now, if Democrats put up another really powerful ticket, I will honestly tell you that. But I just don't see that right now. So what's my bottom line on this? I actually think it's good for America. I think lower taxes on the corporate side, lower taxes for the middle class, and yeah, the upper class as well. I think the overall tax cut act that we saw in 2017 was really stimulative to the economy, and it prevented us from really slowing down, which was a big fear in 2019. So I'm not opposed to tax cuts. I'm a big fan of this. I do think that taxes are too high. I'm not a really big fan of some of the Biden policies, mostly because I'm taking a very laissez-faire approach, a libertarian approach, hands-off approach. I'm not a big fan, even though I don't think it'll really make a difference. I'm not a fan of the Biden plan of, hey, we're gonna, give away more money to certain groups or certain races or to certain home buyers or to chip companies. I think we're overbuilding. I think what we should be doing, instead of just handing out money to people we want to buy votes from like Gavin Newsom does, I think we should be focusing on better schools, a safer society, lower taxes, teaching people how to do the trades coming out of high school. And not that this is something that Trump and Vance are proponents of. I mean, I hope they are. I wish they were. But those are sort of my theses. So overall, from an economic point of view, I align with these opinions strongly. I think these are very good economic ideas, and I don't think they're going to cause inflation. So that's my opinion. And Trump respects Tim Cook. After the debate, Bloomberg thinks that the debate had a really big impact. Of course, we know that. Fundraising's plummeting, everything's plummeting, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is an overview here. I think I've done a pretty good job of outlining exactly what the economic plan here is and what's going on. So hopefully this is very useful to you. I love you all. I really appreciate your support. We're almost actually at 2 million subscribers. We don't have to round anymore, so if you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. And folks, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Goodbye and good luck.
These things that you told us here, I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is not personalized advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show shall not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services we may benefit from. I also personally operate an actively managed ETF. I may personally hold or otherwise hold long or short positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuer other than Househack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Make sure if you're considering investing in Househack to always read the PPM at househack.com.